The brain is an intricate and marvelous mechanism for allowing us to do all the thousands of actions that we need to do each day. It controls our movements, thoughts, emotions, sensations, and the involuntary workings of our inner bodies. It is made up of billions of brain cells or neurons, which operate by communicating in a complex and precise series of electrochemical messages or interconnections. If something disturbs this delicate balance, a misfiring of cells may result and trigger a seizure. What we see as a seizure is really just an outward symptom of the underlying disorder of the brain.
En función del agente que origina las crisis epilépticas, clasificamos las epilepsias en dos grandes grupos. Las primarias, en las que en su origen suelen encontrarse trastornos importantes de base genética y donde no se detecta ningún daño en la estructura del cerebro. En este grupo, las alteraciones que inducen la descarga eléctrica cerebral se encuentran en una alteración de la membrana de la neurona con cambios que corresponden a procesos moleculares a nivel de canales de calcio, cloro, aminoácidos y o GABA. El grupo de las epilepsias secundarias corresponden a los procesos en los que un daño cerebral previo es el causante de la crisis epiléptica. Crisis parciales. Son aquellas en las que la actividad epiléptica comienza en una zona determinada del cerebro. Las características de la crisis dependerán, por tanto, de la zona cerebral donde se origine. Crisis generalizadas. Son aquellas en las que la actividad eléctrica epileptiforme se manifiesta en todo el cerebro. Habitualmente se manifiesta con movimientos bruscos de todo el cuerpo. Si la actividad epileptiforme comienza en todo el cerebro, se denominan primariamente generalizada. Si se originan a partir de una crisis parcial, se denomina secundariamente generalizada. No en todas las crisis o ataques epilépticos se pierde la conciencia ni se tienen movimientos. Una crisis epiléptica puede consistir simplemente en desconectarse.
This is a generalized seizure, or one in which the whole brain is involved. It is also convulsive in nature. The seizure starts with a person crying out, losing consciousness, and falling to the ground, and then developing a generalized stiffening of the body. Respiration may briefly cease, which will cause the person to turn dusky blue color. Following this, there are alternate periods of spasm and relaxation of the muscles so that jerking movements of the face, arms, legs, and trunk occur. The person may bite the tongue and bleed from the mouth, making grunting sounds, salivate heavily and become incontinent. After 1 to 3 minutes, the seizure will subside and consciousness will be regained. Afterwards, the person may be confused, have difficulty speaking, complain of a headache, and wish to sleep. A third common type of seizure is the absence seizure, which used to be known as a petit mal seizure. This type occurs almost exclusively in children and will usually disappear by the time the child reaches adolescence. An absence seizure is characterized by 5 to 15 second lapses in consciousness, during which the child may blink rapidly, roll the eyes, or smack the lips. This can sometimes be misinterpreted as daydreaming, as the child will be unaware of what is happening. Some children can experience hundreds of these small seizures in a single day, which can interfere with learning. After a seizure, the child may be anxious because of a missed period of time and therefore some of what he or she was involved in. Reassurance is important. Calmly explain that the child has had a small seizure and is all right. There's no need for any type of active first aid. The child's parents should be made aware of the timing and the number of seizures so that they can report this to the child's physician.
Different parts of the brain control different functions. The cortex or thinking part of the brain is divided into 4 lobes: frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital. At the back end of the frontal lobe is the motor strip, which signals muscles to move. Towards the top of the motor strip are nerves controlling the leg muscles. Lower down are nerves controlling the trunk, then the arms, fingers, face, and mouth. If a seizure spreads along the motor strip, the twitching can march along the different parts of the body. The back lobe of the brain is the occipital lobe. It contains brain cells responsible for vision. Seizures in the occipital lobe can produce flashing lights, shimmering lines, or visual hallucinations. The temporal lobe is the part of the brain most prone to develop seizures. Primarily generalized seizures begin with a widespread electrical discharge that involves both sides of the brain at once. On the other hand, partial seizures begin with an electrical discharge in one limited area of the brain. Partial seizures, which begin in a single part of the brain, are further described by 2 important additional criteria. The impact of a partial seizure depends on where in the brain it originates and how it spreads.
There are many other types of seizures, such as simple partial, which affects only one part of the body without affecting the level of consciousness.
Parietal. Back lobe of the brain is the occipital lobe. It contains brain cells responsible for vision. Seizures in the occipital lobe can produce flashing lights, shimmering lines, or visual hallucinations. The temporal lobe is the part of the brain most prone to develop seizures. If a temporal lobe seizure spreads to both temporal regions, then the manifestation of the seizures increase, with a pause in ongoing activities, confusion, temporary memory loss, and fragmentary, automatic, robot-like behaviors. In general, when awareness, memory, and consciousness are preserved during the seizure, then a seizure is called simple partial. However, if any are impaired, then the seizure is called complex partial.
The second common type of seizure is the complex partial, formerly known as temporal lobe. It is one in which only a part of the brain is involved, but consciousness is impaired. Some people will initially experience an aura, which is a vague sensation or warning that a seizure is about to occur. This may consist of a feeling of anxiety, nausea, or strange taste, odor, or sound. This aura is actually the very beginning of the seizure, in which the person is still conscious of what is occurring. The seizure may proceed from this point, and the person may appear confused and may engage in random, purposeless movements over which he or she has no control. These may include wandering, mumbling, lip-smacking, pulling at clothes, or repetitive body movements. This type of seizure is sometimes mistakenly confused with drunkenness or a drug overdose. It will typically last 2 to 4 minutes, and the person will be unable to recall the seizure events afterwards. Although the type of movements will vary from person to person, there's often a set series of actions that each tends to follow.
Wie heißen Sie? Wie heißen Sie? Wie heißen Sie? Wie heißen Sie mit Vornamen? Heben Sie Ihren Arm hoch. Heben Sie Ihren Arm hoch. Was ist das?
Bitte?
In rare cases, a person may experience what is termed status epilepticus. This occurs when there is a series of seizures in a row without the person regaining consciousness. If you see a person undergoing seizure activity for 10 minutes, or if a second seizure starts within a few minutes of the first one, call an ambulance immediately. Although this is not a common occurrence, it is life-threatening and should be treated as a medical emergency.